Hello! In today's video, I will be transforming this fjord landscape into an epic Viking civilization. So stick around this time-lapse to see this epic transformation happen. Before that, I have a quick announcement. I created a Discord server for my community, so if you want to get the channel news before anybody or you just want to chat and make new friends, don't hesitate joining. The link is in the description. With that out of the way, let's start. But first, here's a few words about the terrain. I tried to make it in a fjord-like landscape, a kind of terrain you can find in Norway, but without including snow or tall mountains because I wanted to try something new. So this landscape features mountain lakes, waterfalls, rivers branching out, and dense spruce forests. So I started the project by making two boat models that will be sailing through the main fjord. I built them by following reference image I found online and also your suggestions, since some of the clips you're seeing were actually recorded while I was live streaming, so if you weren't aware of that by now, I sometimes do streams on my channel, so you can go check them out. The first ship has one sail, whereas the second one has two sails and therefore is larger and thicker. You can also see that they have flags, which we'll find again in the rest of the project, and they also have oars on the sides. After that, I also modeled a very small canoa with a sail, which is used by the fishers of the village we're about to build. Speaking of which, let's take down some trees and flatten a bit the land to make space for the main town. I'm also building a wall and some gates to give the city a border. For those, I went for a structure fully in wood and used stripstone to make the spikes. For the gates, I also used a structure fully in wood and added a flag and a little beacon on top of the watchtowers that are on both sides of the gates. Later, I also added a walkway for soldiers that guard the walls to walk on. Now it's time to start building the houses. I started by making two rather tall houses, which I will end up moving later because they were in fact too tall to be next to the wall. I'm using two materials for the walls, which are spruce and calcite, and I used dark oak to make the pillars and the outer layer of the roofs, which are made out of spruce wood. But later I'm also going to make other houses in this plate to add more variation to the village. I also made sure to have strong pillars and detailed roofs throughout the whole city. Then I put a well in the center of the square before working on a diagonal house that was way too painful to build. That was really British. This house is going to separate the future rich district from the poorer one. After that, I built another house similarly to the first ones between the two hills of the city. Then I started working on the poor district, which is found in the lowest part of the city. Houses there are smaller in size and height, and they're also more dense. As I mentioned earlier, I'm using different materials for the walls and the roofs to add variety to the district. You can also see that I'm adding trees and bushes to add more vegetation inside the city. And as I mentioned earlier, I moved the first two houses I've built to the future rich district, which we're going to focus on in a few minutes. Meanwhile, I managed to fit 4 smaller houses in that same place. After that, I constructed the town hall, which is the tallest building in the city, and it is sitting in the tallest hill of the town. This imponent building is where the chief of the village lives and rules over the citizens. For that reason, it has 2 floors and a very large roof with 2 towers, the tallest one with a roof and the other one with a beacon. This palace is the first building you see when arriving at the city from the river, so it is very important that it gives a menacing look, and I'm proud of how I achieved that. It's finally time to move the first houses we've made before to the second hill to make the richer district. Sadly, I could only fit 4 houses in this space since they're really large buildings, but nevertheless this district also has its vibe and makes more sense to have larger houses in higher places. With that done, all of the houses are built, and I decided to plant back some trees and bushes into the city, along with barrels spread around in the streets. I also added a little dock for the small canoa and a fisherman hut next to it, and then connected this little harbor to the city with a path. Then I added a card to the square of the city and a small statue I found on Google. With the town complete, I started working on 2 bridges. The first one connects the rich district to a new gate on the other side of a rather small river. Since this bridge goes directly to the rich district, I also gave it a roof. After the street was done, I actually started making the structure with 2 main pillars and 1 arch in the center, surrounded by 2 other small arches in the sides. Then I actually put the gate at the other end of the bridge and connected it to a path that goes directly into the forest. The second bridge instead crosses the large river and it is in diagonal in 2 axes. Because of all of this, it was way harder to construct it, and it was particularly hard to find the correct curve for the arches. It still has 2 pillars and 3 arches, the center one being the largest of them all. The second bridge connects the city to the military camp, where the soldiers protect the city and train for war. For that reason, this bridge doesn't need a roof. However, I still need to add a gate, and while I was there, I also put down the first walls for the camp. So I started the military camp by building a watchtower on the edge of a cliff, and once that was done, I started working on an administrative building. This is where the general decides war strategies and organizes the army. I wanted to try something different, so I went for a circular building with a square section coming out of the top and a tower on the side. However, that made my watchtower look ridiculously thin, so I decided to make it larger and add a beacon on top of it. Then I made a building to have 3 stables for horses, and I finished the walls in the last places. After that, I built 2 bow training targets for soldiers, and next to that I placed a tent where the medic of the camp cures the injured soldiers. Later I spread it around barrels and bushes before placing a stall in the center of the square, which is the place where the weaponsmith and the armorer prepare the soldiers to war. Finally, I moved back to the bridge to put a cart making its way up to the camp. As a finishing touch for this project, I wanted to do something out of my comfort zone: statues. In fact, someone suggested me to build 2 statues of soldiers at each side of the river to make the view when you arrive at the city even more impressive. So I decided to do that, and I used some statues you can find in Lord of the Rings as a reference image. After getting the main shape done, I gave it an helmet and started painting the upper parts of the body, gave it a sword, and then fixed the lower part of the body because it didn't feel right. Once that was done, I copied the statue to the other side, tweaked a bit the helmet to make it different, and replaced the sword with an axe. With that, the project is complete. Before going for a tour with some music, I want to thank you for the amazing support on the channel. Yes, again, but we're close to 500 subscribers as I've recorded this, so thank you very much. I'm recording all of the videos that will come out this summer during June, so the amount of work I'm doing to get you videos during summer is insane, but I hope it will be worth it. That's about it. Enjoy the cinematic.